Alright, welcome back. Today we're breaking down the Black Mirror episode Shut Up and Dance, easily one of their most unforgettable episodes. The ending leaves you feeling so many different emotions, it's like you get punched in the gut the first time you watch it. This episode follows Kenny, a socially awkward teenager who becomes the victim of hackers after they record him jerking it through his laptop webcam. They threaten to send the video to his entire contact list unless he does exactly what they say, and we instinctively root for him. He's a shy kid, he seems harmless and feels like a victim. But by the time the final twist arrives, we get the rug pulled out from under us so abruptly that it doesn't just reframe the entire story, it forces us to confront the fact we just spent the last 45 minutes empathizing with somebody capable of committing one of the world's most disgusting crimes. This is a moral trap very similar to the one set in White Bear. Both episodes have a similar structure. Following a frightened, confused person, root for their survival, then at the last possible moment, it's revealed to us that they committed a crime so horrific that our empathy collapses into rage. And once we're in that emotional whiplash, we're confronted with a dangerous question. If someone is evil enough, is torture an acceptable punishment? Compared to most Black Mirror episodes, the world of Shut Up and Dance is completely ordinary. There are no flashy future gadgets, no dangerous technology begging to be abused. And this is where we're introduced to Kenny, a shy teenager with a simple life. He rides his bike to and from his fast food job and lives at home with his mother and sister. He has the posture and facial expressions of someone who has spent his entire life trying to make himself invisible. His smile is more like a reflex to avoid conflict than an actual expression of how he's feeling. This is done purposely to make him easier to root for. The twist at the end doesn't work unless we spend the entire episode feeling protective of Kenny, interpreting his awkwardness as innocence rather than something darker. At work, he's the kind of employee customers overlook. His coworkers pick on him and Kenny reacts with nervous politeness, like he's always bracing for embarrassment, and that feeling foreshadows the later blackmail and his fear of being exposed. His encounter with the little girl in the beginning is one of the most important details you don't really register until you watch this for a second time. Kenny is at work when a young girl forgets her toy at the table as her and her mother go to leave. Kenny picks it up and returns it to the little girl. On paper, seems normal. He drops down to her level to look her in the eye and returns it to her, holding that eye contact just long enough that you notice it. But you kinda just brush it off as an awkward kid being overly friendly. It's only upon rewatching that you see it for what it is, and then it makes your skin crawl. And that wave at the end, ugh. It's like a kid being noticed by his crush for the first time, except his crush is a child. Now Kenny lives at home with his busy single mother and a sister who is much more socially confident and, let's just say, normal. And that's where the problem begins. His sister takes his laptop to download a movie and gets a virus instead for watching my channel and not subscribing. Kenny takes his laptop back and downloads malware removal software to fix it. The next day when he returns home from work, he locks his bedroom door and unbuckles his pants as he sits down in front of his laptop. However, that software he downloaded the night before had a little something extra in it. And now someone's watching him through his webcam and he's about to crank out some mule juice. He finishes up, washes his hands, and sniffs his fingers like a creep for some reason before returning to his bedroom. And that's when he gets the first message. But before we open that one, let's check out some of these other emails. He's got some guy named Nick sending him pictures, and Kenny appears to be interested in buying a camera from someone named Pete. Based on what we know about Kenny and the type of pictures he likes, it's a safe assumption he could be purchasing this camera for nefarious reasons. He was already headed down an extremely dark path before these hackers ever contacted him. He opens the email from the hackers, and they show him the video they just recorded of him taking a solo trip to Pound Town. They ask for his phone number and tell him to do exactly what they say, threatening to email the video to his entire contact list if he doesn't. Kenny is freaking out. He doesn't know what to do. He's terrified. His entire world could be over. The hackers order him to keep his location active and wait for further instructions. And these instructions come the next morning, right as he arrives at work. The hackers order him to go to a location 15 miles away, and he only has 45 minutes to do it. He pretends to be sick to get out of work and hops on his bike, pedaling as fast as he can. He makes it to the top of a parking garage with seconds to spare. A man on a motorcycle arrives, hands him a white bakery box with a 4-digit number written on top, and takes Kenny's picture with his phone before leaving. he's being blackmailed by the same hackers and tells Kenny he can't help him, but to just do whatever they say and they'll let him off. Kenny confirms the numbers on the box with the hackers and they order him to deliver it to a hotel room. Now Kenny can't figure out how to ride his bike while carrying the box, so he takes the bus, opening the box on the ride to see a cake inside. He gets to the hotel, but the guy in the room he's supposed to deliver to won't open the door and tells him to go away. It's not until the hackers tell Kenny to say Mindy sent him that Hector, finally opens the door. He has no idea what's going on and pulls Kenny into the room to keep him from causing a scene in the hallway. He questions Kenny how Mindy is involved, but Kenny's a stuttering, hyperventilating mess and just says the people from the phone sent him. Hector doesn't know what the he's talking about, so he takes Kenny's phone and reads the messages himself, which freaks him out. He asks why Kenny's doing whatever they tell him to do, and that's when Hector's phone goes off. He pulls it out and his face drops. He gets it now. Kenny is ordered to take his photo as Hector starts slamming the minibar. The two of them are then instructed to take a car from the parking garage, the same car that lady dropped off in the very beginning, and drive to a specified location with the cake. As they walk out of the hotel, a kid in the lobby stares at them with a phone in his hand. Could he be one of the potential hackers? We don't know, but it gives a feeling of omnipresence. You never know if they're really watching, but they always could be. Hector opens up about what they're blackmailing him with, explaining that he's married with a family and was waiting to see a hooker he'd been talking to online. He's honest about it though, saying he was just bored with marriage and wanted to bang a girl in her 20s for old time's sake. He went on a website and sent naked pictures of himself to a girl he thought was named Mindy that turned out to be the hackers. Now generally, when people open up and admit to something like this to somebody else, they do so in hopes that the other party will return the favor in telling a similar story of a time they've done something wrong, which is exactly what Matt did to Joe in White Christmas. Spoiler alert, that episode's coming up soon. The entire time Hector's talking, Kenny is just in his own world, knowing that it's gonna be his turn to try and explain his situation as soon as Hector's done talking. Hector says he refuses to lose his wife and kids, and Kenny begins to cry once the children are mentioned. Kenny admits he was filmed jerking it, and Hector blows it off saying everybody does that, even the Pope. But that's when they notice the gas light in the car's on, and they stop for gas and have this whole annoying sequence where this nosy-ass lady named Karen, whose kid goes to school with Hector's kids, force them to give her a ride in the opposite direction so they barely make it to the location on time. The entire car ride just pisses me off. This lady is just vomiting pointless small talk and stupid questions the entire time, and they're forced to appease her as both of their phones are just blowing up with messages from the hackers. It's so intense and I just want to open the car door and kick her out. When they arrive, it's revealed that guns are hidden inside the cake and they're supposed to rob a bank, one of them being the driver and the other the robber. While they argue over who's gonna do what, Kenny admits that he was just looking at pictures. And Hector manipulates him by flipping the stance he took earlier, pressuring him to be the robber and making it seem like Kenny's life will be over if this video gets out. Kenny has a mild panic attack in the car and accepts the role. He walks into the bank, terrified, his heart beating out of his chest. He pulls the gun on the cashier, demands money, and pisses his pants all in the same 10 seconds. His entire body is shaking, and the cashier gives him a bag of money. Kenny backs out of the bank looking like he's on the verge of passing out as soon as this adrenaline rush wears off, but he makes it outside, except Hector's gone. Kenny begins to panic, but suddenly Hector arrives and picks him up saying that he saw someone standing outside with a phone that was freaking him out. Again, we don't know if it was a hacker, but that feeling of omnipresence is everywhere. They're instructed to take the money to a discreet location where they're given their next instructions. Hector is told to destroy the getaway car and then he's finished. Kenny, however, is told to take the money up the hill into the woods, alone. Kenny questions why he's the one who has to do it, and based on everything we learn at the end of the episode, I think he was punished harder for having the worst crime. Now, I'm not saying it's okay to cheat on your wife, but in the grand scheme of things, if we're comparing which is worse, I think we can all agree that Kenny's crime is much more vile and disgusting. Both wrong, but Kenny's is clearly worse. Braun apologizes for being an asshole, they shake hands and part ways. Kenny walks into the woods to find a clearing and a man waiting for him with a large box. The man sees Kenny and takes a swig from a bottle hidden in his jacket, and based off his face, you can tell he's also being blackmailed into being here. He opens the box to reveal a drone, which he launches and it begins recording them from above. The man then reveals they're both here to fight to the death, and the winner gets the money Kenny just stole from the bank. And if they don't, the hackers are going to release everything they have on both of them. The man, in tears, says his life will be over if this gets out. He asks Kenny what he did, and Kenny downplays his crime again, saying he just looked at 1 or 2 photos, that's all. The man sarcastically says yeah, he just looked at some pictures too, before asking Kenny how young the people in the pictures were. Kenny cries and doesn't answer. The silence says more than words ever could. The man smiles to himself and says, yeah, me too. They both know what they did to get here. This is a twisted look into what Kenny was destined to become had he never been caught. He starts off looking at pictures, and then the next step is making your own. We already saw he was looking to buy a camera. It's sick. You can obviously argue the hackers are bad guys, but they probably saved several children by getting this sick locked up. They both get messages to fight to the death, and when the man approaches Kenny, Kenny pulls the gun he had from the bank robbery. Except Kenny's a pussy. He doesn't have the balls to kill someone, so he tries to take the easy way out and turns the gun on himself. But there's no bullets. The man attacks Kenny as the drone watches, and we hear them beating the shit out of each other. It then cuts to Hector, getting dropped off at home by a cab. He goes inside and everything seems normal. He did it. He robbed a bank, destroyed a getaway car, and saved his family. At least he thought he did. He goes to check on his kids who were sleeping peacefully. But that's when his phone goes off again, and he gets a troll-face message from the hackers. He opens his bedroom door to see his wife in tears, looking at something on her laptop. The hackers sent her everything, and he followed all their directions. Next, we see the lady from the very beginning who hid her car in the parking garage. She gets a troll-face message, and it's revealed that she's a famous hotel chain CEO, and the hackers blackmailed her with racist emails she had sent. She followed their directions, and they still leaked everything on her as well. Same thing with the guy who delivered the cake to Kenny. We see him getting yelled at by his family for being a pervert, and that's when we rejoin Kenny, emerging from the woods, covered in blood, but victorious. He beat a man to death for a bag of money that he robbed from a bank. But it's all over now, right? He did it. Not so fast. Now we get the final twist, and Kenny's phone rings. But before he answers, I love the touch of them putting his phone at 5% battery. Just like him, they're both barely alive and have been through some serious shit over the last 12 hours. Kenny answers the phone to his mom on the other line, yelling at him in tears, saying the video shows him cranking his hog to children. She saw it, his sister saw it, everybody saw it. He hangs the phone up and gets the troll face message from the hackers right as the police arrive to arrest him. So, how do you feel? Because we just spent the last 45 minutes rooting for a pedophile. This episode really messes with your head and kinda just leaves you feeling gross afterwards. I mean, maybe this is just me, but if I'm held at gunpoint and told that either I have to rob a bank or send a video of me jerking it to my friends or family, it's not even a question. I'll hit the send button for you. Anybody who would rather rob a bank has to be hiding something. Although, to be fair, I'm 40 and jaded as f***. Kids and young adults can't really grasp the reality of how long life is, and I could see them totally thinking something like this would just ruin their lives forever. This reveal makes us recontextualize everything that we just watched. The opening scene with the little girl becomes horrifying. Kenny's intense guilt suddenly makes sense. His demeanor, the panic, we understand what he was going through now. The entire time, I thought he was kinda overreacting, so I knew there had to be something more going on. And the guy he fought at the end knew it too. It just reveals how quickly we'll try to defend and root for somebody if they look pathetic enough. Because as it turns out, we were missing a lot of important information about this kid. Now let's talk about Kenny. The manipulation with this character begins immediately. He is introduced as gentle, withdrawn, and visibly uncomfortable in the world around him. We're conditioned to associate vulnerability with innocence. When someone is anxious, soft-spoken, we instinctively lower our guard. We see ourselves in them or someone that we could be. And that's where they get us. Because Kenny has so little outward agency, we instinctively look at him as the victim. And the reveal at the end completely changes that. Kenny was into some dark shit, and the terrified kid we spent the entire episode with was only one slice of who he really is. The reveal also changes how we see Kenny's willingness to go to extreme lengths to keep his secret hidden. Before, we might interpret his compliance as the understandable desperation of a scared teenager. But now, we know he was really just terrified of being revealed as a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. That completely changes the moral weight of his actions. It's normal for kids to overreact when they're scared and under pressure like this. If he got caught and was watching just regular adult content, After all the facts came out, I'd bet he'd walk away with a slap on the wrist. No jury is gonna send an innocent teenager who was blackmailed into committing crime in order to survive to prison. However, the kids aspect of it changes everything. He wasn't just a scared teenager not thinking straight, he was someone willing to do whatever it took to keep his disgusting secret hidden. And this leads us to the first major ethical question. Are the hackers good guys? There's a dangerous argument that they are. They represent vigilante justice. They target people who have done horrible things and hold them accountable. Kenny, in particular, is someone that most of us would consider deserving of exposure and punishment. Now, the US legal system is slow and far from perfect. Even if they catch him red-handed, there's always a chance he gets off on a technicality. A problem with the evidence or the chain of custody, or maybe he didn't get read his rights when they arrested him. Anything can happen. From this perspective, you can see the hackers as delivering justice directly and quickly. The appeal of this argument lies in the emotional intensity of the crime. Once we learn what Kenny was guilty of, rage becomes an easy response. Similar to the audience in White Bear, it feels righteous. It's satisfying to see someone like Kenny collapse in terror, because that collapse seems like a mirror of the terror inflicted on the children exploited in the material he consumed. And when you're blind with rage, the hacker's cruelty can be interpreted as deserved suffering. They expose him to his family and the police, making sure that everybody knows what he did and preventing him from hurting any future children. So if you're someone who prioritizes the outcome over the process, you're probably someone who sees the hackers as good guys. However, this argument falls apart when you look at the hackers' motives and their methods. They don't simply expose Kenny, they play with him. They force him to commit additional crimes and create innocent victims. The hackers aren't motivated by protecting children, they just get off on control. If their goal was justice, they would have reported Kenny or exposed him to the authorities immediately. If their goal was money, they would have had Kenny drop the cash off to them somehow, but they didn't want either of those things. Their satisfaction seems to come from being the puppet master. They just wanted to create anarchy. And that brings us to our next question. Does the reveal make everything that happened to Kenny okay? Did he deserve what happened to him? This is the part of the episode people argue the most. Once we learn what Kenny did, a lot of people are going to have an immediate emotional reversal. Sympathy turns into disgust, and suddenly the suffering we just watched feels justified. Clearly, we can all agree that Kenny deserves to be punished. But the hackers didn't punish him in a lawful or fair way. There's cruel and unusual punishment laws for a reason. You can't force someone to rob a bank, murder a guy, and then try to justify it after by saying, "Oh, but he did this horrible thing, so that makes it okay." That's insane. And saying it out loud really makes you realize how crazy it sounds. Yes, Kenny's actions are despicable. Nothing in this episode minimizes that. But the question is not whether Kenny is guilty. We know he is. The question is whether guilt makes torture acceptable. Before we knew all the details, this whole episode felt like an innocent kid being tormented. But in hindsight, his suffering can feel like a guilty person being punished. And based on a lot of the comments I got in my White Bear video, for some people it disappears completely. The emotional twist makes it easier to say, yeah, he deserved it. It's uncomfortable knowing we just spent the last 45 minutes rooting for a young Jeff Epstein, and you want him to pay for that betrayal. But you gotta remember, there's a difference between accountability and cruelty. This episode forces you to try and maintain those distinctions, even when confronted with a horrible crime that triggers such an angry reaction. Feeling bad for Kenny feels disrespectful to the victims here, but feeling sympathy for Kenny doesn't mean we're absolving him of guilt. In the end, if you decide Kenny deserved everything that happened to him, you might want to think twice about what that implies. It implies that cruelty can be justified if the target is a horrible enough person, that anonymous people can decide punishments without any oversight, that collateral damage, including people's lives, are acceptable losses as long as the person they're chasing is evil enough. It's a slippery slope, especially when you think about the fact they weren't limited to just going after child predators. They also went after much less severe crimes as well. They based their justice off who was available for them to blackmail. The severity of the crime really had nothing to do with it. However, if you're like me and you don't think Kenny deserved what happened to him, you risk sounding like you're minimizing the horrors of his crime. And that's why this episode hits so hard. It forces you to answer two questions that people often collapse into one. Is Kenny guilty and deserving of being held accountable? And does he deserve what happened to him? You can answer the first one with a firm yes, while also answering the second one with a firm no. But when emotions get involved, It's easy to think that you have to pick one answer for both questions. It pressures you to think that because he is guilty, whatever happened to him is justified, and we're forced to try and resist grabbing that low-hanging fruit. Justice is supposed to be about accountability, but all this is about is power. Torture doesn't heal victims. It doesn't undo harm that's already been caused. It doesn't make society any safer. All it does is satisfy the emotional hunger for retribution. At the end of the episode, nothing has been fixed. All that's happened is an arguably horrible person has been destroyed in public. And if you feel relieved having watched that destruction, this episode's kind of suggesting the problem isn't just Kenny. In the end, both Shut Up and Dance and White Bear aren't about technology. They're about morality under pressure. What happens when empathy is weaponized, anger replaces judgment, and punishment becomes entertainment. These episodes work because they manipulate us like the puppets we are. They make us care and then punish us for caring. They want to see how far they can push us, and if they can make us angry enough to make decisions based on emotions rather than logic. So after all that babbling, I ask you again, you think if someone is evil enough, torture is an acceptable punishment? And there you have it. If you made it this far, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. I greatly appreciate it. I got a lot more breakdowns coming soon. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.